There's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door. Open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in.
Oh, let the King of Glory in. Open up the door starts right now. So fling wide, you heavenly gates, and prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And he heard a sound behind him. He said, behold, I looked, and there was a door standing open in heaven. And I heard a voice which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here, and I will show you the things which must take place. That's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us, the things that the Word of God foretold us would come to pass, those things which must take place, those things which are taking place even now. That is what this broadcast is all about, discussing the issues of the day, discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and worldview. Good afternoon, everybody. What you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. And I am Andy White, your host of Open Up the Doors. Welcome, everyone, all my friends, all my supporters, all my listeners, all across the fruited plain and all around the spherical globe. I'm glad you're tuning in. Thanks for joining in with this week's edition of Open Up the Doors. Hey, do me a favor. Let me know if you are listening. Please send me some comments. I am streaming over on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page over at facebook.com/faithfm91.7. If you've never liked the page, please like the page and join in the conversation over there. Shoot me some comments, shoot me some thoughts as the program progresses. Let me know where you are listening from. You can also email me if you'd like at ajwhite777 at icloud.com. That's ajwhite777 at icloud.com. We are streaming over the internet. If you're outside of the Faith FM broadcast area here on the east end of Long Island, we are streaming on the internet over at hamptonschristian.com. And you can just go to hamptonschristian.com, look for the Faith FM tab if you happen to be sitting at your desktop or laptop or whatever. But the best way to listen to Faith FM 24/7 is to get the free app. We have a free Faith FM app where you can just hit that app up 24/7 and listen to Christian broadcasting on your Android, on your iPad. We've got all the platforms, and those links are posted here right now in the comment stream on Facebook Live, as well as you can find it at hamptonschristian.com. So I think I got my preliminaries all out of the way. Again, if you are joining in on Facebook Live, please share this. It is so important. Please share this around into your streams. If you've got groups that allow live streaming, please share it, get the word out, and join the family here at Open Up the Doors. Well, I want to, excuse me, I want to share with you today some thoughts regarding the end times warfare that we all find ourselves in. Now, when I say the end times warfare, your first thought might be that I'm going to talk about wars and rumors of wars, that maybe I'm going to talk about the king of the north going out on his campaign of conquest and against the nations. You might think I'm going to talk about the Gog and Magog war. That's a big one. A lot of people are expecting that. Of course, we all know it's Bible prophecy. But when I talk about the end times war today, you might think I'm going to be talking about the Antichrist army surrounding Jerusalem in the Battle of Armageddon. But actually today, those things are not what I'm going to be referring to regarding the end times warfare. I want to bring it down to a more personal level today. The warfare that we are all presently engaged in these last days. It's a warfare in these times to keep the faith, to endure to the end, to be overcomers in the midst of these perilous times, these days of trials, to be strong and of good courage in this present evil day, in this age that we find ourselves in. So many are falling away. So many are becoming discouraged. So many are becoming distraught. In the church, I'm seeing this. And quite honestly, folks, really what's in my heart today is today's broadcast, in large measure, is meant to be an exhortation to you, my audience, to keep on fighting the good fight of faith. I want to encourage you today, as Paul did with Timothy, to wage the good warfare. Paul writes in 1 Timothy 1:18 and 19. Paul writes to Timothy. I think that's what I said anyway. Wage the good warfare, having faith and a good conscience, which some have rejected. Concerning the faith, they have suffered shipwreck. So many people today are being shipwrecked in their faith. They're giving up. They're tired of the warfare. They're tired of the controversies that we find ourselves in on a daily basis now. But I want to encourage you, as Paul did, brothers and sisters, whoever might be tuning into this broadcast, whoever might be hearing it on YouTube or Facebook, I want to encourage you, wage the good warfare. Wage the good warfare to not acquiesce to the spirit of the age, my friends. To not give in to the pressures to conform to this world. As an example of what I'm getting at, we saw a sad capitulation this past week that has upset, I think, just about everybody who's a Christian. I think just about everybody who supported this corporation for their stands that they've taken in the past. But we saw a sad capitulation this past week regarding Chick-fil-A. As the Daily Wire reported earlier this week, Chick-fil-A was one of the last remaining large companies to stand in defiance of the PC police and the LGBT rage mob. And they've suddenly and inexplicably, I should say, they've caved in. It's leaving a lot of people scratching their heads. But in this article in the Daily Wire that Matt Walsh wrote, I think he had some pretty good insight. I'm not going to read the whole article. But he reports that Chick-fil-A President and Chief Operating Officer Tim Tassopoulos announced in an interview, again going back a week or so, that the company, Chick-fil-A, will no longer donate to certain Christian charities that the aforementioned rage mob, the LGBT rage mob, they're not going to donate to Christian charities anymore that the Gestapo have deemed anti-LGBT. Tassopoulos says that as the company goes into quote-unquote new markets, he wants to be quote-unquote, he wants to be clear about who we are. Well, Mr. Tassopoulos, one of those Greek names, your faithful customers already knew who you were, who Chick-fil-A is. And they've supported Chick-fil-A through the years for their stands. I love Chick-fil-A. Who does not like Chick-fil-A? That's just a given. But your customers, they have supported you wholeheartedly throughout all the controversies, because they knew the controversies were ridiculous. They knew it was a false narrative. They knew that it was a smear campaign based on misunderstandings. There was no reason for you guys to capitulate. Your faithful customers know who you are, but now they're not so sure. Mr. Tassopoulos went on to say, quote, beginning next year, Chick-fil-A will move away from its current philanthropic structure. After donating to more than 300 charitable organizations this year, the Atlanta-based food chain will instead focus on 3 initiatives with one accompanying charity each. They want to focus on education, homelessness, and hunger. And I thought Matt Walsh had a really insightful comment here. Because after reading that they want to focus on education, homelessness, and hunger, Matt Walsh says, in which charities will lose out? Because these were these were singled out. These were mentioned in the announcement. But which charities will lose out now that Chick-fil-A has shifted focus to education, homelessness, and hunger? The company confirms that it will be breaking ties with the Salvation Army, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and the Paul Anderson Youth Home. In other words, they will stop donating to charities that help with education, homelessness, and hunger in order to focus more on education, homelessness, and hunger. You see, and they've done this to appease the LGBTQ fascists, as I said a moment ago. We want to clarify, he said, who we are. I've said something through the years, folks, that's become somewhat of an axiom with me for my own life, for my own sense of never giving in to the rage mob, never giving in to the zeitgeist. And I've said this through the years. When you compromise with evil, evil will always win. And we are living in an age where the temptation to compromise one's convictions grows daily. Now, this is an illustration on a corporate level. Oh, somebody might say, well, they're making a business decision because they want to open up more Chick-fil-A's and airports and different areas where they've been blocked because of the LGBTQ crowd, and they've been pushed out. But they are the third largest food chain in America. Their stand has never hurt them before. It's never hurt them. So it is somewhat inexplicable. It's an acquiesce. It's an appeasement. It's a giving in to the zeitgeist. And it really has disappointed a lot of people. I've seen the comments around Facebook because now it was a natural knee-jerk reaction because I said it. I've seen lots of other people saying it too. It's like, well, are they going to open up on Sundays now? Now, a lot of us would like for them to open up on Sundays. Honestly, hey, what a place to go after church. Chick-fil-A, but they're closed on Sundays. Closed on Sunday. But everyone's asking, are they going to open up on Sundays now? Now, the other day, this guy Tassopoulos came out and said, no, we're not going to open up on Sunday. We're not changing our convictions and whatnot. But there's always that first crack in the eggshell. There's always that first step into compromise. And again, I said it. We're talking on a corporate level, but I want to bring it down to the personal level, to you and me, because we face the same temptations. It's the same zeitgeist. The temptation to compromise our conviction grows daily because the battle is real. The struggle is continual. The temptation to give in, to compromise, to acquiesce because you want to be accepted. You want to be liked. We all want to be liked. You don't want people to think you're an oddball. These feelings that we all have, they're normal. They're normal feelings. Does anybody like not being liked? We're human beings. We have these real emotions, these real feelings. So the temptation there is to give in a little bit here, give in a little bit there. We all feel this way. But here's the crux of the matter. Again, Paul, writing to Timothy, knowing that his time on earth was nearing its end, he said to Timothy, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. What a testimony, brothers and sisters. To be able, with assuredness and confidence, at your last words, in your dying days, to be able to say, I have fought the good fight. I have kept the faith. When so many people, as I said a moment ago, are being shipwrecked in their faith because of all these external pressures, because of all these disappointments, because you see others, you see some of the strongest people in the church faltering and failing, and it has an effect on you. And I don't know, I'm just talking for myself right now. I don't know, maybe I'm different, but I find myself in these struggles on a daily basis. the weariness, the discouragements. And we get into all of our theologies, and we get into all of our eschatologies. And this broadcast is really about a lot of those things, as you know, for those who are my regular listeners. But at the end of the day, the Battle of Armageddon, the Gog-Magog war, the military campaigns of the king of the north, the Antichrist. At the end of the day, as far as you and I are concerned, the only battle in this end-time warfare that's really going to matter to you is the one you're engaging in, to fight the good fight of faith, to finish your course. The only victory that's going to matter in this end-time warfare, brothers and sisters, is a victory that can say, I have kept the faith. Stick around. I'm going to go to an early break. But here's Creed. Fight the good fight. I'll be back in a moment.
My all, my everything, anything.
Keep fighting the good fight. Fight what you know is wrong. Fight the good fight of faith. That's what it's all about, brothers and sisters. Welcome back. Andy White here. You are listening to Open Up the Doors here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7 and 93.3 in that peak, WEGQ 91.7 in Quad, penetrating. We are penetrating the unseen powers of darkness by simply speaking the light of truth. I want to go over to some of the comments here that people are plugging away at on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page. By the way, if you're just joining in, I am streaming live over on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page at facebook.com/faithfm91.7. If you'd like to join in the conversation over there, I'm looking at some of the comments in the comment stream. One sister, actually our video producer, said this: as Christians, we are to love Jesus more than anyone else, or he tells us that we are not worthy of him. This is true. And because we love him, the world will hate us because it hated him first. Amen, Debbie. And then she said something about the song I just played. We've got very different musical tastes. That's all I'll say on that. Oh, I just love that Creed tune. Listen, it just fit the ethos of the moment too, by the way, because that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about fighting the good fight of faith, of standing strong, of being an overcomer, of speaking out in the midst of an age where everything is, they're calling good evil and evil good. And we know that as Christians. We've seen that. We're very, very well aware of that. But you know, there was a time when Christians, rightfully or not, could seemingly just rest and be at peace in their faith. They could just live their lives as faithful churchgoers and be considered good and upstanding members of their community. That, in part, in a certain sense, is an element even in the parable of the 10 virgins. You know, they all fell asleep. The entire church, for centuries, to one degree or another, was at ease, blissfully sleeping in the comfort of the knowledge of the gospel. Former generations of Christians, and you can even see this in the old-time commentaries in a lot of ways, but former generations of Christians were not necessarily thinking about end times prophecies. They weren't particularly all that concerned about the end times and the signs of the times like so many of us are today. But at about midnight, you know the parable, the cry went out to prepare for the bridegroom. And that's kind of what's happened in this last century, brothers and sisters, with the rebirth of Israel in 1948, and with the subsequent increasing signs of the end times. The labor pains of the end times, with wars and rumors of wars, with lawlessness increasing, with earthquakes increasing, and all those other things that Jesus talked about would happen prior to his return. And now these things are suddenly upon us and coming to the forefront in real time. So the church that was asleep for centuries and was resting at peace has now had a rude awakening, I think. So often we all say things are getting worse than we ever imagined, and they're going to even get worse. But I mean, some of the insanity that we see around us on a daily basis. But the blissful existence of the church for centuries has suddenly been awakened in these last days because the shout has gone out. The bridegroom is coming. So prepare your lamps and put on the full armor of God, because the end time warfare has commenced, brothers and sisters. But we can also see that half the church, even though they had been asleep, when they were awoken, they were ready to shine their lights. But again, as the parable does teach us, the other half of the church, the other 5 virgins, they don't seem to know what's going on. Or worse yet, they've gone apostate. They've gone the way of Jezebel. What a tragedy. I was thinking about this just the other day. This Jezebelian spirit. But what a tragedy when you relate it to people who maybe once knew the Lord or claim to know the Lord, to go from being a virgin daughter of the king to becoming a harlot Jezebel, a tool of Satan. What kind of a journey is that? A tragic one for sure. This past week, Dr. Mike Brown put out an article called The Personification of the Spirit of Jezebel. And in this article, he started his article with this, and I want to quote this because it just flowed so well into my stream of consciousness for this broadcast today, because I was thinking about this. Those 10 virgins, the 5 that Jesus told that fell asleep, they weren't prepared. The lamps were going out, and Jesus said, "Go back out and buy some oil," but they didn't have time. They were dazed and confused, and I tied that together with apostasy in my own thinking to some degree. But Mike Brown began to reference somebody that I'll get to in a moment in his article. But he said this, and I said this was really good. How does Jesus feel? How does Jesus feel when an Episcopalian priest, someone ordained to represent his name, is a well-known champion of abortion? How does he feel if that same priest is an outspoken lesbian married to her partner? And how does he feel if she says, quote unquote, abortion providers are some of my personal heroes and modern day saints? Now, he's speaking of this person that I was actually going to bring up this week anyway, the very Reverend Catherine Hancock Ragsdale. The very Reverend. I don't think so. What a title. Talk about narcissistic, obnoxious, arrogant titles. I am the very Reverend. I don't even like using the word reverend in a normal sense. But then you got to put two other modifiers on it. The very. Or at least one other modifier on it. I'm very reverend. You might just be a reverend, but I'm very reverend. But I digress. I can't stand this stuff personally. But the very Reverend Catherine Hancock Ragsdale was recently named president and CEO of the National Abortion Foundation. As was reported in prochoice.org magazine, or this organization, prochoice.org, quote, Ragsdale is an Episcopal priest, or priestess. I don't know why they call her a priest. She's a priestess of Moloch, if you ask me. Ragsdale is an Episcopal priest who has been outspoken about abortion rights, LGBTQ equality, and the public policy issues affecting women and families throughout her career. Catherine Ragsdale has preached about how abortion is a blessing and has been active in clinic defense work and other activities to support abortion providers for more than 35 years. The very Reverend Catherine Ragsdale celebrates abortion, homosexuality, and lesbianism as gifts from God, quote unquote. It makes me want. It makes my eyes want to shoot blood. It's like Mike Brown said. How does Jesus feel about this stuff? We know what the Word of God says. We know the very thing that is being alluded to in the Jezebelian spirit in the book of Revelation, the church of Thyatira, that they allow this woman who proclaimed herself to be a prophetess to lead God's people into sexual immorality and into idolatry. This person, this very reverend, is a personification of the spirit of Jezebel, of the apostate church. This priestess of Moloch. Abortion providers are some of my personal heroes and modern day saints. What an outrageous! I can't. I can't wrap my mind around this. I really can't. Ragsdale also leads an organization called the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. This Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice actually provides rites of blessings for parents about to kill their children and for the facilities in which the blood is shed. This Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, they have a little ceremony before the abortion to bless. If this is not the rites of Moloch in the 21st century, I don't know what is. A Jezebelian priestess who hangs out with the prophets of Baal. This kind of wickedness is growing exponentially all around us. And the reason I bring this up, brothers and sisters, is again because we are in this end times warfare. I'm saying that because we know as Christians that we have always been in a spiritual warfare. We know that. That's not a surprise to us. But I believe, hear me out here, because I believe this end times warfare is like nothing the church has ever faced before. And we must be sober-minded in these days to wage the good warfare. Like Paul said, I quoted the verse earlier in the broadcast, wage the good warfare. Because lawlessness will increase. We must engage the good warfare. Because people will be giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons. We must engage the battle. Because many will fall away from the faith. We must engage the battle. I'm going to throw a tune on. I'll be right back. The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Andy White here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7 and 93.3 in that peak, WEGQ 91.7 in Quag. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. God bless you all across the fruited plain, all around the spherical globe. Christians have always been persecuted for their faith, but there's something different going on right now. What I said a moment ago was that I really think that this last day warfare, this end times battle is so much different than I think the typical warfare of the past. Christians have always been persecuted for their faith, but something's different going on now. And I believe it's because the spirit of Antichrist is rising because his time to walk onto the stage of history is almost here. And he's waging war against the saints. And part of this wartime game plan is to weary the saints down. And if he can't flat out destroy your faith, he'll work to get you to a place of weariness and apathetic surrender, where you won't want to speak up anymore, where you won't want to engage the battle anymore. Daniel, writing in his book in chapter 7, he said, I was watching, and the same horn, this little horn, this vision of the Antichrist, this prophetic vision of the Antichrist, he said the horn was making war against the saints and prevailing against them until the Ancient of Days came. Notice that. The Antichrist was waging war against the saints and prevailing them until the Ancient of Days comes. That's when the battle will be over, when Jesus returns. In the meantime, it's going to increase exponentially more and more. And this Antichrist shall speak pompous words against the Most High. He shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and he shall intend to change times and law. Look what's going on in the world around us. All the changes that are going on. And really, in things that used to just be considered normal are considered abnormal, and things that used to be considered abnormal are now considered normal. And the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time. And brothers and sisters, I do believe that God has brought us forth for such a time as this. Really, we're living in exciting times. We're living in extraordinary times. I've said that throughout the years. You know that. You sense that. People know. Even non-believers know that something is different in the atmosphere. Something is just very, very different. And I do believe that God has brought us forth as the end times church for such a time as this. So my encouragement to you today is really what I said at the top of the broadcast. Don't give up and don't give in. Sometimes in life, people will talk about you for no reason. They'll hurt you for no reason. They'll disappoint you for no reason. They'll make you cry for no reason. But there is a God who created you for a reason. There is a God who's molded you for a reason, who anoints and appoints you for a reason. And I believe it's for such a time as this. Therefore, beloved, do not grow weary in doing good. That's the exhortation for today. Because we are living in such an Orwellian zeitgeist where spiritual hosts of wickedness are running amok. And the insanity is off the charts. I was going to do this next report as a theater of the absurd. But you know what? It's almost like nothing is absurd anymore. Things that we just used to consider being absurd have become normal. Debbie, I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking maybe I should retire the theater of the absurd, because in this world, nothing is absurd anymore. Absurdity has become reality. Well, at least in some people's minds anyway. This past week, the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, they celebrated International Men's Day by proclaiming its support for, quote-unquote, men who get their periods and men who get pregnant and give birth. Yeah, you heard that right. Now, number one, I never even knew that there was an International Men's Day. That sounds kind of, I don't know, misogynistic, I guess. It's amazing in this day and age that there would actually be International Men's Day, because, you know, men are just misogynists according to the leftists. But hey, you know what? I didn't even get a greeting card for International Men's Day. I mean, no one came up to me whenever. Oh, it was what day? Oh, it was November 19th. November 19th was International Men's Day. What they were celebrating, I don't know, because I never heard of it, and I didn't get any cards in the mail. I didn't get anybody, give me a hug. Hey, happy International Men's Day, Brother Andy. I don't know. Anyway, the ACLU saw fit to celebrate it. And they came out saying, well, that men who get their periods and women who get their periods, who get pregnant and give birth, they need to be acknowledged as well. What? So obviously the ACLU used this International Men's Day to wade into the transgender issues, obviously, and the redefinition of what a man is. The insanity is off the charts. Men who get their periods are men, the ACLU official Twitter account said. Men who get their periods are men. Men who get pregnant and give birth are men. Trans and non-binary men belong. Hashtag International Men's Day. They belong. Yeah. They belong either in counseling or in a mental institution. That's where they belong. Wow. And this guy, Stephen Frost from Forbes magazine, writing about the same event, said, quote, gender fluidity challenges more and more the very notion of binary gender division and what a man is supposed to be. These people have failed biology class miserably, haven't they? But like I said, absurdity has become reality. And when you want to point them back to reality, they call you the hater. They call you the hate monger. They call you the divisive one because you're trying to point out that, listen, folks, men don't get periods and men don't give birth. I don't care. It doesn't happen. No matter how much in your fantasy world you want to think that it happens, it doesn't. But here's the bottom line. We are living in these vexing times. And the temptation can be to fall into despondency. I share this stuff because I'm trying to contrast to you the warfare that we're in and why there are people, why I'm seeing so many, even on Facebook, who are losing hope, who are giving up because they see these things are becoming crazy, and it's like if you push back in the slightest bit, if you want to stand up and say the emperor's got no clothes, well, then you're attacked. So there are people getting weary. Brothers and sisters, do not grow weary in well-doing. Do not grow weary in doing good. Fight the fight of faith with a good conscience, as Paul said. Fight the fight of faith. Let me go back, in case, because I saw some people just joining in late on the broadcast. And let me just go back and share really the premise and the crux, the theme, if you will, for this broadcast today, where Paul writes to Timothy and he says, wage the good warfare, having faith and a good conscience. Don't let these things that are going on diminish your faith, destroy your faith, push you back. Wage the good warfare, having faith and a good conscience, which some, having rejected concerning the faith, have suffered shipwreck. Fight the good fight. Finish the course. Keep the faith, Paul said. I want to encourage us, all who are listening today. That's my heart for the season that we're in. Because I know it's getting intense out there. And everyone knows it. We're all feeling like the shoe's about to drop. The other shoe's about to drop. As bad as it's gotten, every week we see something else that makes it even crazier than it was the week before, the day before. We're living in vexing times. We're living in vexing times. And the temptation can be to fall into despondency, like Job's wife, who told her husband in despair to curse God and die. And then there was Lot, of course. Lot, who was oppressed, who was vexed by the filthy conduct of the wicked. For that righteous man, dwelling among them, tormented his righteous soul from day to day by seeing and hearing their lawless deeds. So I feel this in my heart to encourage us today, knowing that in the battle, you get lonely. The other day I was really dealing with feeling very lonely the other day. Oh, I have a family, I have a wife who loves me. I know I'm not. You know, God said it's not good for man to be alone. And I'm not alone. I've got a great wife. But the other day I was feeling alone. And it was inexplicable. I couldn't really understand it. And I know sometimes when God's doing that, it's just really, I think he's just trying to draw us to himself. He's just trying to draw us. Because, you know, we're complete in him. We need to find our home in him. That's how we That's how we fight the good fight of faith. When David was weary after the battle, when David was distraught after a battle, the Bible says that David strengthened himself in the Lord. He went and he strengthened himself in the Lord. He got along with God. The temptation is to give up and to give in. But Jesus, in the book of Revelation, in the church of Pergamum, where they were suffering such great persecution, Jesus said that's where Satan's throne was, in Pergamum. But he said, there are those amongst you that have kept the faith. They did not deny the faith. The temptation to give up is ever before us, and many succumb to it. Because it does get to a point where it can all just wear you down. When you see all these drag queen things going on in libraries and in schools, and babies being butchered at 9 months, coming out of the womb, and calling it abortion when it's infanticide, all these things that are piling up. It does get to a point when you're engaging in the battle to wear you down. I know there are people that are just blissfully going along, ignoring this stuff, but that's not what God's called us to do. He's called us to be the salt of the earth, the light of the world. We need to be engaged in the battle. And that's why Paul said to Timothy, you therefore must endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. There is this multi-front warfare that we are engaged in. You've got this battle that is going on outside around you, as I've just delineated on to some degree. But you've got that battle that's going on inside of you, where you get weary, where you get tired, like it happened to Jeremiah. God told Jeremiah to go and preach to the nations, and at some point, Jeremiah just said, God, I can't do it anymore. They're not listening to me. I'm getting thrown in the pit. I'm getting thrown in the cistern. I can't do it anymore, God. Jeremiah was there. Because of this multi-front warfare. The battle to not become discouraged is real because of the things that you see going on around you. The battle to not grow weary is real. The battle to not grow cynical. Oh, that's something that's in my own life, folks. I need to keep a guard. I've shared this before. I need to keep a guard on my cynicism. Sometimes I can get so cynical. And I'm always reminded that the first syllable of cynical is sin. But I get cynical. And I know in my heart I shouldn't. But there's this battle raging on. And the battle is to not let the outside battle affect your inner man. To not let the outside battle affect your hope and your joy and your spirit of gratitude. And that's where I want to go in the last couple of minutes that I have here. I'm going to change gears a little bit as we're coming up on the Thanksgiving holiday. But one of the items that Paul lists in his delineation of the last days, when Paul was speaking of the perilous times that would come, he said that people would become unthankful. Believe it or not, one of the last days battles that we will face is the battle to not lose our sense of gratitude. Again, maybe I'm just talking to myself today. I really prayed before this broadcast. I said, Lord, please let the words I speak today be an encouragement and edification to those who would hear these words. Because there are times when we just need to be reminded of these things, to be built up in our faith. And one of those components that help build us up in our faith, to keep us fulfilling the course, to keep us running the race, is to not lose our appreciation and thankfulness for the things that God has done in our lives and is doing in our lives. Despite all the chaos that's around us. Oh, yes, there's a lot of chaos all around us. And I know many times, like David, I want to say, oh, that I could just fly away to the furthest most part of the seas. Just fly away and get away from it. Hide myself in a cave. Hide myself under a rock. But that's not what God's called us to do. Fight the good fight. And a major component to fighting that good fight is the ability to keep the faith is to not forget the goodness of God. Therefore, in these last couple of minutes, knowing that we are coming into this Thanksgiving holiday, I want to have a thankful heart, because a thankful heart is an overcoming heart. I've talked a lot today about fighting the good fight, of finishing the course, of keeping the faith. I've outlined the problem. I've outlined the issue in so many ways, but what's the solution? Well, the solution is getting along with God, like I said David did, strengthening yourself in the Lord. And the other part of it is to have a thankful heart, because a thankful heart is an overcoming heart. I want to be, and I am, so very thankful as I remember that the Lord crowns the year with his goodness. The Lord crowns the year with his goodness. Thank you, Lord. Brothers and sisters, let's be reminded as we move into the season of Thanksgiving that it is good to give thanks unto the Lord. It is good to be thankful for the friends and the family and the people that God has brought into our lives. In this last couple of minutes, I do want to say thank you, as I always do on these shows right before Thanksgiving every year. I never want to miss this, because it is so important. But I do want to thank the folks here at Faith FM for giving me this opportunity for over 5 years now to bloviate and to pontificate my views, my biblical worldview over the airwaves here at Faith FM. There's been good times, there's been bad times, there's been strange times, like some of the stuff that happened today. But it's all good. So I have a heart of thanksgiving for Doug Kinney, all those here at Hamptons Christian Fellowship that tune in on a regular basis here at Faith FM. And then, of course, I want to thank the Open Up the Doors videographer, Miss Debbie Whitmer, who does so many things behind the scenes, folks. Debbie, I always appreciate you. Even the times that maybe we're misunderstanding one another. Even the times that maybe I'm getting under your skin, because I know I can get under people's skins. Trust me. But I want you to know that you're loved, that you're appreciated for all that you do for Open Up the Doors, for this broadcast, for the web page, for the Facebook page. I'm just giving you a shout out, thanking God for you and your faithfulness and your commitment. And of course, really, everybody all across the fruited plain and all around the spherical globe that tunes in to listen to Open Up the Doors. My listeners, my supporters, some of you are supporting this broadcast financially, and I appreciate that so much. And I don't bring it up too much. I feel awkward. I don't like asking for donations, but Faith FM needs it. Things cost money. That's a reality. But I do thank you, my supporters, for the things that you do, for tuning in every week. And I do want to say have a happy and blessed and peaceful Thanksgiving. I will be back live in 2 weeks with a special guest interview with John Hollow on December 5th. In the meantime, folks, have an awesome and great Thanksgiving. God bless.